Very good afternoon to you. It's Jim from maverickstar Observatory. What an interesting last few days it has been at the observatory. Before we did the latest magnetic pole position, we was talking about climate charts, how the algorithms are running on YouTube. I mean, we proved it. I knew it was going to happen. You just, once you know how they work, looking for keywords such as climate change, then they're going to start putting those banners up in the videos, aren't they? But it just shows you now what levels, mainstream media and organisations are going to go to in order to keep their agenda going, and that is that man-made climate is solely responsible for modifying our Earth's climate globally. Their agenda is CO2 is what we create as a byproduct of combustion engines in cars, power plants, etc. And since the Industrial Revolution back in the 1780s, I think it was, we have considerably altered the reservoir of composition of atmospheric gases to the level where we have modified the climate, because they say that CO2 is a greenhouse gas, in that it is a tri-molecule, but at the same time they emit one of the most abundant greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which is water vapour, H2O. It's also a tri-molecule, but that for some reason is not what they want to talk about. They want to talk about something that mankind has physically added to the atmosphere and changed the reservoir of gases, and as a result now we have a modified climate which favours more floods. In that video I did before we done the last position of the magnetic North Pole, I clearly showed that there was other things which have not been up for debate by these organisations, yet clearly from the changes of the data through time, we see that it fits perfectly, not close, but absolutely perfectly. We've got the 90 years of pole migration from the 1900s to the 1990s, and we can see there's been a 500-mile movement of the magnetic North Pole in that time, those 90 years. When we look at the atmospheric temperatures in Celsius, we can see that there's been a 0.5 degree increase in temperature, and it is from that period of time to that period of time, or 1900s to 1990s. Again, we see a significant shift in the speed of the pole migration, that it covers more distance in shorter spaces of time, over 1,000 miles from the 1990s to the present day. And at the same time, when we're looking at temperatures from the 1990s to the current time, we see a 1 degree increase in temperature. There is no coincidence about it. There is a direct correlation between what is taking place with our Earth's magnetic poles and the magnetosphere, and also a direct correlation with regards to temperature increase. And not only that, does that fit the timeline perfectly with poles and temperature, but there is also another skeleton in the closet which we can't forget, because we know how relevant that is. Because if we overlook the main driver of what controls the temperature on our planet, we'll be overlooking the sun and its activity. And by no coincidence as well, over the last 33 years we've seen a decline over the last 3 solar cycles in sunspots and activity. That is by no coincidence. But these two things, the Earth going through a magnetic pole reversal and the grand solar minimum, for some reason have been omitted. So you're overlooking one of the major events on our planet that's taken place in the last 780,000 years, which we're talking about a completed reversal, or within the last 12,000 years, where we're talking about the most recent excursion. And then we're also omitting the fact that the sun is in an all-time low productive period, and has been for the last 33 years, declining. How can you present facts whilst admitting these two most important, in my view, fundamentals of what could be really driving the climate on our planet? I believe it will be better understood in the future that the Earth's magnetic poles are more important than anything else with regards to planetary mechanics and habitable planets. And we should have already learnt this already when studying Mars and watched the effects of, the first of all ceasing of volcanic activity, and then secondarily probably through solidification of the core on that planet, a planet losing its magneto, which generates its magnetosphere, which keeps the atmosphere and the climate and the water on its surface intact. And if we are going to start emitting key fundamentals out of climate models and climate predictions for the future, then we are offering ourselves no service from that point on, because we're removing some of the most fundamental aspects which do change climate. And clearly, by no coincidence, that was shown in the chart I delivered before the last video I done. We do live in some strange times, and I do want to get onto the important part of this video, which is looking at the data that we've collected from one of our superstars over in Canada who's recently submitted it to us. It's on the website if you want to go and have a look at that as well, along with all the other archived information that we collect here at the observatory. And I'll try and fit in tomorrow an Earth Alpha at a glance, but I want to say just something. If we are interviewed on mainstream media about the alternative views on climate, it's not going to be long before we're going to be subtly maybe accused of being paranoid or a conspiracy theorist, or you're a disbeliever in climate change. All these things now carry taboos that people have already been programmed to understand. As soon as you hear the word you're paranoid, someone being accused of paranoid, then anything else after that point what they talk about is discredited. And it's the same if they're classified as a conspiracy theorist, they're not taken seriously. Or if they're a disbeliever now in climate change, as we've seen Google and YouTube now offer what they are going to do to prevent that. In other words, it's not too different to what has already took place with, the threats to scientists that if you do not follow the line that we give you to follow, you're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your pension, you're going to put your family in poverty. So you better put your conscience in the closet and just get on with what we tell you to do and toe the line if you want to keep what you've got. And this is what has led to a lot of professional scientists just walking away from the field. But we could equally accuse them of things. We could say, you're disinforming the general public by not giving them the correct facts and missing and completely disregarding, key aspects which do regulate temperature and climate on our planet, like the magnetic pole reversal, like the grand solar minimum. How can you admit, something which is the main climate driver, the sun's activity? How can you admit that out your climate model? We could call them, we could accuse them of committing science fraud. You're misusing public funds. You're stealing taxpayers' money, you're telling lies, and the truth means nothing to you. We could say all those things in our defence, and we would probably be more accurate than what they would be by calling us paranoid, conspiracy theorists, and denying climate change. You've seen, as well as I have, guys, you've seen now firsthand how they have tried to silence alternative views on climate, which probably stand more correct than what theirs do. If you really believe that CO2 is causing such dramatic changes on our planet, then look into the business of CO2 and how much is actually in our reservoir, in our atmosphere, because the total amount of CO2 that's in our atmosphere is 0.4%, and that also includes natural added CO2 from our oceans and our land. And when you compare how much naturally has been put in our atmosphere compared to how much we put in there, you'll find that what we put in there is completely insignificant. Even their model from the 17 or 1860s, when the Industrial Revolution got started, there is no clear connection from that point to now that we have caused through adding that tiny minuscule amount of CO2 into the atmosphere, that we have caused problems with our climate. There is clear enough evidence out there to suggest that this is being caused by something else. And I've presented those facts to you guys. And we're under attack by YouTube right now and Google, and this isn't where they're going to stop. They are going to try and completely eradicate any independent observatory in the future. And right now we're hanging on by our bare teeth here at the observatory, and we're trying to do, still more here. I'm trying to do more to fund the observatory myself. I've offered another £3,000 from now till January to keep things running at the levels that we have done to this point. But things will dramatically change after January on this channel and the way in which we present, the information to you guys. We're just hoping that people realise, that this is a gold nugget and we should be keeping it going at any costs. And I don't expect anyone to break their own bank and go without things. If you can't afford to support our observatory, then please don't worry about it. We will try to keep the information coming as freely as we can for most of you. But what a lot of us have to realise is we are all in this together. And if we want to maintain science and truth and deliver, true facts, then we know it's not likely to come from these mainstream organisations and governments and authorities around the world. That we know is clear cut from this day on, because we see the way they are behaving now with removing freedom of information and freedom of speech and the right to hold discussions on even cases such as climate control or climate chaos or climate change. We should have those freedoms to do that, and when we are being suppressed of those, we can't help but then compare it to what happened in our natural history, which is not even 100 years ago. We know that the nature of the beast hasn't changed that much in 80, 90 years. So the mentality is just there. It's just when it's provoked, it comes back and it's ugly, as we saw was the case in the 1940s during the last Second World War, and all what happened with those atrocities that human beings committed against each other. There's no point mentioning what human beings was affected and what human beings was the causes of those effects, because we already know those answers. So again, there's a link down there in the description if you want to help support what we do. And I hope you understand the importance of what we do. We're trying to do more, but we've got to do something about this deficit that's been occurred over the last 19 months of running this observatory through the pandemic. Yes, all of us have been affected, and it's got to the point where it's got critical. We're in the red, and something's got to be done about that if we are going to maintain what we're doing. The question is for you guys: is it of value to you to support? That's the bottom line. Do you have a natural interest in the truth about what is taking place with the home, your planet that you live on? Or is it, if it's just of no concern to you, then you needn't be a subscriber of the channel. You might as well just carry on if there is no concern, or if you take for granted really what we do have. And we should all, in my view, appreciate what we've got. We've got an atmosphere that protects us from the harshness of space. You've only got to look at what NASA do with the ISS to ensure the safety of those people on board whilst they're in space. It's a dangerous game. And we orbit the sun at something like 72,000 miles an hour every year, every day of the year. We're rotating at 1,000 miles an hour, and we're in, we are having thousands of tons of meteorites actually land on the surface of this planet. It is just a matter of time really before a larger one hits us, as has happened in our Earth's history. And if you want a reminder of that, take a look at the moon on the night and have a look how heavily impacted that is. That is a smaller target than our Earth. And if you think our Earth doesn't look like that, well, the only reason when you look at a satellite photo and do not see them impact craters is because there is vegetation that has grown over it. And we also have flowing water on our surface, which changes the erosion patterns of these craters. But trust me, we've been hit more times than that, and that only makes sense because we're a bigger target than the moon itself. Doesn't mean to say that it's not likely to be the case in the future. We've seen in the last 20 years some pretty big meteorites go into the sun, and we should be really thankful that they've not been on a collision course with the Earth, because we also saw, I think it was Schumacher-Levy, hit Jupiter and cause, you know, a colossal storm on there, which I think lasted months if not years. So, you know, we do live in a hostile environment, and we should all be very thankful for the things that we've got. And it's just the fact that we live in a daily society like we do, that we don't get a lot of time to afford ourselves the ability to actually think about these vulnerabilities. But we do live in an environment which is changing all the time, and it should come as no surprise to people that there are cycles. You know, there are solar cycles, there are climate cycles, there are CO2 cycles, and there are temperature cycles, and these go back thousands of years. Science has been done at a reasonable level in the past. It just needs to continue. I don't think bringing corruption into science is a very good thing at all. You know, at the end of the day, we should be educating our children with the right information, and they should be aware of alternative arguments with regards to climate, alternative views, because that is how we progress, we challenge things. You know, science is based on the fact that, first of all, if you think you've got a discovery and it's been repeatable and passed scientific tests, but we should also, as we do, criticise it to what a level needs to be analysed, and that is the only way you test your science theory for strength. If we eradicate debate, then where is the future of science going to be as a result of that? Something that we've done for, you know, hundreds of years. Which is why we live in such corrupt times and unbelievable times, unprecedented times, and unprecedented behaviour by, you know, world leaders all over. I could get on this subject forever with you guys, talking about these things. You want to talk about dictators? You don't have to look very far away from home to find one. Yet, when it's on the other hand, you know, and these politicians are talking about dictators, they're trying to capture your support for them to go to wars with other countries. We can't have dictators, and they're treating women like this. What Afghanistan was really about, you know, after the fact that they said we're going to have to go to war in Afghanistan to control terrorists and as people like Osama bin Laden. But what was the costs involved in that? Over £1 trillion spent by America alone, the loss of 30,000 American soldiers, as well as British soldiers and other European soldiers. The cost was never, you know, an acceptable level, and the cost of life was unprecedented. All for one man. The resources were misused, and nobody's going to be held accountable for it. We could talk about lots of issues, but really we're concerned about with what is taking about our planet with regards to climate change. And I suppose on the back of that, I should just show you the data that one of our superstars that has taken his time out to deliver and collect the information for us, and that comes from Kendall in Canada. So guys, I hope you have given you some food for thought. You know, I do read all the comments in the sections. Sometimes I don't get all the time to answer all of them as much as I would like to, but I certainly read them, and you know, I generally discuss them the next day in the next video. But I've been intrigued with what has been said over the last couple of videos in the comments section, and you know, I think what is more important is, you know, to say thank you to those people that have supported us, all of you, to this point in time, and let's just hope that we continue to get the support, you know, which carries us on into, you know, 2022 without the services being disrupted as much as possible. I think if we can hope for that, and even just maintain what we've got at a certain reasonable quality or level, then I think we're doing all right. But I would just love to get more equipment out there in Russia, Brazil and South Africa, and it's achievable. So let's have a look at the data sent by Kendall. I'll catch up with you a bit later. So I've just looked whilst editing this video, though it's going on now for almost 20 minutes, so I'm going to try and be as quickly as possible. But I will say this: if you go over to poleshiftnews.com, You can have a look at the archives of the data that we've collected on the Trimag magnetosphere sensor and global magnetometers that we've got in the field, and you can have a look at the archives going back over the time that those little observatories have been running and collecting data for us. But in general, here's the latest. We'll have a look at, we'll just compare it with the last few months that we've been looking at. Been creeping up to 60 microteslas on the orders. It's not that it's 60 microteslas, we just use that as a scale. But what we're looking at mainly is just the field of change in the readings from the point where we started the benchmark off. So if there's a fluctuation of 10 degrees or 10 microteslas, we know that there's been a significant change. In Kendall's recent data drop that he's given me a couple of days ago, you can see that it maintained at 60 on the left hand scale, but dropped almost 1.5 microteslas, then went back up. And at some point we're going to have to start comparing what was causing these events. Was it solar winds? Was it solar storms? What was it that actually caused that? Or was it the position of our orbit around the sun at a particular point of time of the year? Or is it aligning up with something that causes these? We've got the data which we can always go back over. The problem is it requires a hell of a lot of time. We really could do with a couple of members of staff here at the observatory to help refine some of this data. It would be a lot more interesting for you guys, as well as just looking at the charts and going onto the website and accessing the archive of data that we've already got. But in general, just looking at this data over the last month, I can see that it fluctuated a couple of times by 1 to 1.5 microteslas, but then maintained going back up to 60. I did notice that the frequency shortens as well, and maybe that's something else we need to look at, because you can see that the sine wave at the beginning of the chart, towards the end, it becomes weaker, and we should be expecting things to get weaker and weaker in any case from Canada, because it is in all honesty losing its magnetic intensity over that region, and as a result we should start seeing increases in muon detections. Now, when we compare Kendall in Canada's muon detection readings with ours, they are considerably higher by about 300 muons per hour per square metre. So Canada is receiving more radiation, possibly as a result of a low magnetic intensity over that region, than what the UK is right now. And we would expect, if we got a muon detector and a magnetometer over in Russia, central Russia, where we know the pole is heading, we'd expect that to be less than even here in the UK, because of its intensity is actually protecting the region. But when we compare that, hopefully at some point, with Brazil and South Africa, where the mid-Atlantic anomaly is, we'll see that not only is it in one of the lowest protective regions of magnetism, but it's also one of those regions where we should see even more higher readings of muons than what we're getting in Canada. I've got to talk with Jeff at some point in the week in Perth, Australia, to see if he's got some data for us from one of our magnetometers. He's also got a muon detector for us. It'd be great to include that in the next Earth Alpha at a glance, which we'll do in a couple of days' time. We've got Kendall's muons in for the last week, I think it is, that he emailed me a few days ago, so we'll be including them in the Earth Alpha at a glance. So feel free to come over and just follow the progression of these anomalies as they change and take place. And I'll just briefly, I know it upsets a few people, but at the end of the day, we are a publicly supported observatory, and therefore it does require public funds. So if you could chuck in a few dollars, the link's down there, and we can continue providing our service that we do here. Remember this, there isn't another YouTube channel on YouTube like ours. A lot of people talk about these anomalies, but they don't have the equipment, and I don't know how they can be considered to be doing a scientific research on these anomalies if they're not using the scientific method by using actual equipment. As you guys know, we've probably got close on a couple of £100,000 worth of equipment we use at our observatory, and that is bespoke equipment. That's what it would cost to have a company build it for us, only because we had the skills to build it ourselves, that we're in a position to actually own it. Simple as that. These muon detectors, if you couldn't build one yourself, you're probably looking at £6,000 to £7,000. We have those out in the field. Magnetometers, likewise. Trimag, you can just forget it. It would be too exotic to be able to be in a position with the funding that we raise to actually purchase one of those, but we do have one at our disposal, and that makes us probably one of the most unique YouTube channels on YouTube discussing these anomalies. Guys, tune in the next few days when we have a look at what's going on with them anomalies related to the Earth's health, and from then till now I'll say what I usually do. Bye for now, take care.